I'm the man put on this earth to find the killer and kill him.
My name is Kit, and you must subscribe to Geek Legion of Doom.
Michael Houston King writes and directs Gator Face from 2026. I should point out that there are actually two movies called Gator Face in 2026, and they both have a somewhat similar premise. This one is a serial killer one, the other one is kind of like a cult one. Anyway, this one is actually a semi-sequel to the movie Lake Jessup, or Bone Cruncher's Revenge. It's not, strictly speaking, a direct follow-on. It kind of takes place within the same area, Lake Jessup, and has different characters and stuff, but that is clearly like has happened in the past of this movie, if that makes sense. So this movie focuses on this guy who is a janitor and is an alcoholic, and he's quite an abrasive man. And he is our main protagonist, and around this Lake Jessup area, the alligators seem to be becoming more aggressive. Some speculate that someone is deliberately kind of feeding them to make them kind of more aggressive. But there is also a serial killer around this lake area who is killing victims and dresses kind of like in like a gator mask, I guess. And Buzz McGraw, our redneck hero, I guess, our protagonist, is the only man who can potentially stop him. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So this is a low-budget movie. It's quite similar in some respects to Lake Jessup in some of the way the story is told, should we say. Should probably expect from the same writer-director here. Let's talk about what I think works in this movie's favour. I think there's a duality of what I'm about to say, because I think on one hand I think there are some positive elements, but the same elements are also a negative. And we'll start off with our protagonist, because he's not your typical kind of protagonist for this style of movie, I would say. Very rough around the edges, quite unlikable, in actual fact. And he's an alcoholic, and they actually almost use this as a superpower. So you might think that the message of this one would be alcoholism is bad. And there is, he goes to like this AA group type thing, and obviously there's lots of talk of that. But he kind of uses alcoholism to dull his inhibitions, shall we say, which gives him the ability to do certain things. So in a way, it is almost like a pro being alcoholic movie. Now, again, this is going to be a negative, but I'll give it props on having a very different and outwardly kind of like, a redneck by his own words kind of protagonist who is not likable, gruff, and, difficult to kind of sort of have a relationship with, as we learn that he's had a variety of ex-wives, and he breaks up with one in this movie. So, I'll give props to having a different type of protagonist here. I think the idea of a double threat is quite fun. We have a serial killer, but we also have the fact that the alligators are becoming more aggressive, and these two things in unison ultimately make for people around this area to obviously have some trouble, should we say. So again, there's a certain amount of danger here. It does kind of feel authentically Floridian, I would say. Not that I'm from America, but I have actually been to Florida a couple of times, and it definitely leans into that. So if you are from that area, it's very proud of the fact that it's kind of has those sort of attitudes and sort of outlook, I would suggest. So that the writer-director here has changed up some of the VFX. So in Lake Jessup, there was kind of like a practical element here in regards to some of the crocodiles, or alligators, I should say. But it didn't look particularly good. But I would say, props to having, practical effects. There was a bit of CGI, I think. Here, 2026, it's all about that AI. And we're going to come onto it again, but I have to say, if you're looking at it side by side, realistically, feelings of AI aside, the effects probably do look better, to be honest. Your personal, you know, I know people have kind of strong feelings about AI, but, you know, you've got to say, if you were to play these two effects, I think the effects in this movie look better, albeit they still look like AI effects. So, you know, there's some kind of fun elements here. I think our serial killer is quite the kind of, they treat it as like a bit of a mystery, and there's a couple of okay kills and stuff like that. So let's talk about what doesn't work, and we're going to go back and talk about some of the stuff we talked about in the positives a bit, in the negative light. Our protagonist is particularly unlikable, I have to say. Now, I appreciate the fact that he comes across as a atypical protagonist, but it doesn't change the fact that he is a little bit of an unlikable character in many ways. And I have to say as well, the actor that they got to play him, I think it's fair to say is good for the part, but I have to say, I don't think he's particularly at the most emotive of. He kind of like the same expression in the whole movie. Now, I don't think anyone's expecting necessarily, you know, Oscar-winning acting here. I don't think the acting is actually necessarily bad, but it just, you know, it's kind of one note. Is maybe where I'm going to be going with that one. What else can I say? So the actual VFX themselves, as I say, achieved by AI. You know, it's the early days of AI in independent movies, and it kind of looks like AI. So, you know, I do think it's better than the original in regards to VFX, but you know, it's still not brilliant to be honest. I think the main issue for me though is, and it's very much on line with the first movie, is that there's so much time dealing with kind of personal drama stuff, like, you know, the alcohol meetings, the kind of the talking to people in rooms, conversations in rooms, talking to his girlfriend, which kind of goes nowhere. With little time given to the alligators or the serial killer, to be honest with you, and that could have been, you know, expanded upon a lot more to make this more of an interesting sort of horror movie with a kind of a dangerous feeling protagonist. But here he's very much in the background, this serial killer, so I didn't really feel it had much bite. So I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10. What were your thoughts? If you did, leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom, you furry fools!